Well, good morning. My name is Kent Shipley. This is my wife, Dee. We've been asked and volunteered to give our testimony and just share our story, since everyone has a story and that makes them who they are. So we're going to share a little bit of ours. God blessed our broken roads that led us to each other. Those stories are for another season, but we are here to share our combined story, and we hope it blesses you.
We actually met in 1985 when Kent interviewed for a position at the company I was working for. Through that interview, he was hired and immediately transferred to the Dallas branch for a year for training. At the end of that training, he and his family moved to Tulsa in 1986. We met again in 1992 when he interviewed and he and his family moved back to Kansas City, and he was a manager at the same branch that I was. As peers, over the next 7 years, we worked together and became friends. He and his family lived in Olathe. Me and my family lived in Piper, so our friendship was mostly one of business, but from time to time we would go to lunch with other people, and we shared stories of what our various families were involved with. As fellow managers, we attended a lot of manager functions, but many times we were each solo because we each had a spouse with medical issues. At the end of October 2000, I was scheduled to attend a business meeting in Dallas, Texas. As part of that meeting, I had to give a human resource presentation on the regional operation that I was responsible for. At the end of my presentation, we took a break, and while I was putting my notes together and getting everything in order, the phone in the room rang, and I just knew it was for me. My oldest daughter was on the other end of the phone, and she had to tell me that she had just found her father dead. With everything that goes into planning a funeral, trying to help my daughters through the grieving process, and getting through things that I needed to get through, I found it odd that Kent did not attend the funeral. Upon returning to work, he came into my office and proceeded to tell me that his wife had asked him for a divorce that very same weekend. And so after 27 years of marriage, I became a widow. And after 17 years of marriage, Kent became divorced, all in the same week. Kent left the company that we both worked for at the end of 2000, and in January of 2001, I took a 6-month leave of absence because I no longer could mentally do the job that I was being paid to do. During this time, Kent and several other friends and I would meet periodically for lunch just to stay as friends and acquainted. And during this time, what we would do is one of us would call each other and confirm the time and the place. So one time we were scheduled to go to lunch, and I called him and I couldn't get a hold of him, which I thought was kind of odd. So obviously we didn't do lunch. Thinking this odd, I found out the very next day that he had left work immediately because of a kidney stone. So we jokingly call that stand up number one, and that one was acceptable. Now we're going to fast forward to 2002. One of my good friends told me that Kent had asked her if I would be interested in going to dinner sometime. Well, I wasn't interested in the whole dating scene, and I was quick to say that if God wanted me to date, he would have to throw somebody down in front of me and slap me up the side of the head, because I was not going to enter that dating scene. It took Kent about a month to call me, and when he finally did, after a very lengthy conversation, we agreed to meet for dinner at the end of June, as long as it was not a date, as long as I drove separately, and as long as I paid my way. So the day came, and my daughters had asked me what I was going to do that night. And I said, well, I think I'm going out to dinner with a friend, but I haven't heard from him yet, so I'm not sure. Well, the night came, there was no word, there was no dinner. So on Monday, I called him because I thought, well, maybe I got the date wrong. So I called him and I said, did I misunderstand? And this is what I heard.
Well, it wasn't the kidney stone. Actually, I was scared too. But that's really not the reason. The reason was, at the time I worked for Fireman's Fund, and I was responsible for the St. Louis office and the Kansas City office. And our St. Louis office had season tickets to the Cardinals. And the branch manager didn't have any agents to give it to that night, so he asked me if I'd be interested in them. And being a sports fan, I was really excited. But the biggest thing was these tickets were on the third row up from the field. Third row. And I just couldn't pass them up. So being the wimp that I was, I did not call Dee. I've apologized profusely many times over the past 17 years, telling her that I was sorry. But they were third row seats, dear, up from the field. So anyway, that's what happened.
So that's stand-up number 2, probably not nearly as acceptable as stand-up number 1. So we set a new date for July 6th, and we met at Paulo and Bill's. I drove. And in all fairness, I have to admit that I was really struggling with going because no matter what I said it wasn't, it was actually a date. But he was a friend, and I didn't have his cell phone number, and I didn't want to be responsible for standing him up. So I just internally had this struggle all the way over, and in reality, I was 45 minutes late. So he had an opportunity to watch all the dishes come out of the kitchen, and so he knew what he wanted to order by the time I got there. Now we're going to fast forward again to December of 2002, and we were married. This year we celebrate 18 years, and it's been a new life journey filled with ups and downs as we try to blend 2 families with adult children, lots of love and lots of happy memories. My daughters have accepted him as a very dear friend, and he is the best Gumpy to our 3 grandchildren. Our 17-year-old grandson, who graduates from Piper next year, has made the decision that he is going to go to Kansas City, Kansas Community College because that's where his grandpa John was a professor until he died. And that is a story that tells you that legacies live on, and he is very proud of his decision.
So we share our story as an example of what God has for us. It's His control, it's His timing, and if we let Him lead us, things will turn out the way they're supposed to, right?
Amen.
So our God is full of grace and most certainly a God of second chances, and He is the center of our marriage.
Yes, he is.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.